By the way, Nick Fuentes was not really cheerleading on Trump. If anything, he was attacking Trump for being too left-wing and too cucked or whatever. And so he was really not even really on the Trump train. But now that Trump wins, of course, snaps back into line because that's what these people do. It's absolutely pathetic. They're authoritarian freaks. But look at the stuff he's saying now that Trump won.
The feel when you're totally not pressed. The feel when we control your bodies. Hey, bitch, we control your bodies. Guess what? Guys win again, okay? Men win again. And yes, we control your bodies. Hi, I'm your Republican congressman. Hi, I'm your Republican congressman. It's your body, my choice. And men, women again. Men win again. There will never, ever be a female president. Never. There will never be a female president, ever. It's over. Glass ceiling. Dude, it's a ceiling made of fucking bricks. You will never break it. Your stupid face keeps hitting the brick ceiling. We will keep you down forever. You will never control your own bodies. You will never be the president of the global empire. Never gonna happen, sweetie. Your body, our choice.
Your body, our choice.
Love that.
What say you, Crystal?
Well, he's wrong about there not being a female president. It's just not going to be a Democrat. It'll be a Republican.
Yeah, we were talking about this the other day. You think Democrats are not really going to ever run a female again,
Not for a long time. Not for a long time. And, you know, they won't like explicitly say that. But
they feel it.
They feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to be like, no, we just got to run a white guy. Like, that's just how it is. There was some of that sentiment even in 2020. You know, that's part of how Joe Biden ends up being the nominee. But it's going to be more aggressively felt now. And, you know, there are a million reasons why Kamala lost, but I do think that this country has a problem with women. Like, I do think that, especially the reason I say it'll be a Republican woman is because, you know, we were talking about Kamala and her talking about the most lethal military and really going out of her way to be like, I'm tough and I'm the commander in chief of whatever. I think she and Hillary felt the need to do that to overcome this, caricaturish impression that women are soft, women are weak, like you're not going to be tough when we need you to be tough.
Hillary is also ideological, though. It's really not just that she was overcompensating.
Yes, I agree.
She also
she is
loves
ideological.
war.
Like, she agrees with it. But Kamala, I think, doesn't have an ideology. And so that was what she felt she needed to do to try to persuade people. It reminds me, though, the Nick Fuentes thing. I mean, Nick Fuentes always, like, says obnoxious, outrageous, like, things. That's his shtick. But it reminded me also of Matt Walsh tweeting out like,
oh, I covered that.
Oh, now that it's over and we won, actually, you were right. Project 2025 is the agenda. LOL. And so, you know, they're just like, being honest and having an accurate view of reality is just not a value that is important on that side of the aisle. It's just not. Like, there's no backlash for being like, yeah, I admitted that we were just lying the whole time about how we have nothing to do with Project 2025. And of course, Project 2025 isn't going to be part of the Trump administration. You're like celebrated for being like, see, we tricked you. Actually, this is the real thing.
I'm curious if you think, because I agree with you on the woman thing, but I also think the right woman could get elected. And I don't think it necessarily has to be a right-wing Republican woman. I mean, if you really think about it, that's what people said before 2008 when Obama won, and then Obama won again in 2012. And there were some polls that showed a freakishly high percentage of the country, still a minority, but a high percentage of the country was like, we're never going to have a black president. Black president will never be accepted by this country. But he was, and this is a line that I stole from Bill Maher back in the day, he was the Jackie Robinson of American politics. Like, it had to be that dude at that time. Yeah. And for women, I do think the right woman at the right time, you know, could get it. I agree. Could get it done. But I agree with your general point. I definitely agree that it's harder, and also I agree there are, like, we got to be honest here. Some of the liberal points about the reaction to this election are true, right? And it's not anti-leftist to point out that was gender a potential factor here? Yeah. Is it determinative? I don't know. But was it a potential factor for some people? Yeah. I mean, we've heard people say, like, what if she's on her period? You know, right? How many problems is she going to cause if she's on a period? Is she going to bomb a country or something? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so, and to be, you know, like, generous in the interpretation of this, it's almost inarguable that there's some issue with imagining a woman as commander in chief because we've never had one, right? So the proof is in the pudding. The fact that one has never been elected and we represent half of the population. So where I, shy away from leaning too much into this analysis is, for many, it ends up just being that's the sole reason.
That's what Scarborough did. Scarborough and Al Sharpton did this the other day.
Joy Reid, same thing.
Yeah.
She
told me that.
She went on this whole spiel about how Kamala ran a literally perfect campaign. And one of her points in the direction of this was a perfect campaign is she said Queen Latifah endorsed her, and she never does that.
As Queen Latifah goes, so goes the country.
She had Taylor Swift, she had Beyonce, she ran a flawless campaign, and so the only explanation for this is sexism. And I don't want to go to the other side and say, oh, gender had nothing to do with it, because I think that's sort of equally preposterous. But there's already an effort to let the Democratic Party elites off the hook for what is a clear indictment and repudiation of the project that they've been engaged in for, quite a while. And, so that's my fear of leaning too much in the direction of it was sexist. You have to acknowledge, okay, yeah, gender was probably a role here, but you also have to say there are some deeper level issues that need to be grappled with if they want to be successful again.
True, but we'll get into this with Edinger Mentum, because this is another area where I think I still have some semblance of a disagreement with you and him, is that the day after the election, all the lefties were like, she ran a horrible campaign. And it's like, she actually didn't. Sorry, she didn't.
I haven't said that she ran a horrible campaign.
So then not you. I'll respond to the generic leftist argument I've seen.
Well, and you and I have had critiques of her campaign the entire time. Literally, what was it, the week before the election, we were debating the Liz Cheney strategy, So it's not like we haven't had our critiques all the way along. But
she still would have lost even if she didn't do that.
I think it's unfair to just lay the blame at her feet. And I think it's a little too convenient for the Democratic Party to just say, oh, she was a bad candidate and sexism and she ran a bad campaign and, we could just move forward from here. The other thing that I saw that I thought was interesting is Democrats in the battleground states, like Kamala Harris in the battleground states, performed better than she did in the country overall. The shift was mitigated in the battleground states, which suggests that those ads she was running that were class war ads, that were talking about Trump as a billionaire, were more effective than his pitch about, that she's for they, them, not for you, because she was able to close the gap in that head-to-head paid ad messaging war. Just wasn't sufficient, obviously. So anyway, I think, that is a point in favor of the economic messaging that she paid to put on the airwaves was good messaging, just insufficient given, a whole range of other factors.
I'll save my commentary on that because I still have some disagreements with it, and I want to bring Edinger in, and this way it'll be fun because it's you two versus me, and I'm still going to win. So we'll do that in a little bit.
You shouldn't say things like that to your wife.
I'm kidding. In fact, with both you guys versus me, the more likely outcome is you guys will win. But anyway, before we bring Edinger in, Nick Fuentes, any more thoughts on him? I mean,
they just let it all hang out, and it doesn't matter. I do think the one demographic group Kamala did a little better with was white women. She held, black women always show up strongly for.
Did she do better with white women?
I think a little bit.
I saw she lost 55% of white women.
But Joe Biden also lost white. Democrats have been losing white women.
Oh, I thought that he did a little better.
It probably depends on which analysis you're using.
Oh, okay.
In at least one of them, she improved a little bit. At the very least, I don't think she declined as much as with them as she did with other voters. And the one thing I know for sure is she improved with college-educated women. But, I thought that 2022, when I thought that there would be a red wave, and then I was wrong, I think I overlearned some of those lessons of this actually really matters. And this actually really did reshape the electorate because you had this key right that women have taken for granted for quite a while now, taken away. People experienced that. They actually felt that and were like, oh shit, that was a wake-up call. And, that just wasn't really correct at the end of the day. That just wasn't really correct. In a midterm election, sure. When Trump's not on the ballot, sure. But when you have a full general electorate and Trump there doing his thing, obviously not enough.
Yeah, but then I see stuff like this from Nick Fuentes and you watch it and you're like, how is this not repulsive to people? How did this not drive that counter wave? You know what I'm saying? I guess they didn't expect it to be this much of a rubbing it in your face.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. Let's also call space spade. Democrats, when they lose, are like, yep, we lost. And Republicans, when they lose, I still saw Republicans, their main takeaway from this election was, that's how I know 2020 was stolen. It's like, and literally none of them ever said anything unifying in any way, shape, or form. It was literally, we're going to keep shitting on you, we're going to keep rubbing it in your face, and now we're going to brag that it's your body, my choice.
The one I loved was the complaints about, like, Kamala didn't do her concession speech soon enough. And it's like, your man still has not conceded.
I know.
After 2020. Like,
I know.
What are you talking about?
You saw what Mike Lee was saying, that why is it taking so long for the votes to come in Nevada? And it's like, hey, asshole, your guy already won the election in a crushing victory, and your takeaway is Democrats are probably stealing it?
That's the other thing, is in advance of the election, and I think it was Rogan and Elon talked about this, you know, Democratic plot where they were flying illegal immigrants by the millions into swing states to try to steal the election. And it's like, you going to follow up on that? Because that obviously didn't happen. So what, now suddenly elections are free and fair because you won? Oh, that's rather convenient, is that you don't find any evidence of electoral fraud, which there was no, you know, significant evidence of voter fraud this time or last time. But now suddenly when your team wins, then the elections are good to go.
It's literally a right-wing misinformation echo chamber now.
They're just so
and
shameless.
Rogan is part of it. Rogan is part of it.
It's just incredible to me how shameless.
Do you see this like attempt to rehab Rogan now in liberal spaces where they're like, wait, you should have gone, Rogan. You should have. And I'm looking at it like, you guys fucking missed the train, man. That shit left the station a really long time ago. I was on his show 4 or 5 times. I would sit across from him and make left-wing arguments and anti-Trump arguments, and he would nod along in agreement. You know what? He's a grown-ass man. Stop infantilizing him. He went down a right-wing track, ended up in a fucking echo chamber with the dumbest people you've ever seen making the dumbest arguments you've ever heard, and he still believes it, okay? Let's stop infantilizing him. There's no coming back. He's not coming back. It's over. Like, this is it.
Yeah, no, you like, he's responsible for his own, you know, political journey and evolution. But it is indicative of, it goes in with the whole, like, you know, smearing of the entire, every Bernie supporter as like a toxic Bernie bro. And I've been thinking too about the bro exit from the Democratic Party. Like, this isn't the whole thing, but think about how every male supporter, yourself included, and even the female supporters, myself included, were smeared as being sexist and racist and toxic for supporting Bernie Sanders. And, you know, it's like individual people are responsible for their own actions and ideology, Joe Rogan included. It is indicative, though, of the fact that some of those very same constituencies, which were very pro Bernie Sanders, like the Bernie to Trump pipeline ended up being correct. Like, Bernie was strong with Latinos, with young men, with, you know, with Joe Rogan himself. And when those individuals had a contest between, like, the Bernie Sanders vision and the Trump vision, they picked the Bernie Sanders vision. And when they had a choice between the Trump vision and the neoliberal vision, they picked the Trump vision. Yeah,
but I guess I would counter by saying, whose fault is that, right? Like, it. At some point, it's their at some point it's their fault. Like,
of course, but we're talking about a broader phenomena.
Right.
Joe Rogan is a representative, like, reflective of that phenomenon.
Yep.
And each of those individuals are responsible for their own choices. But we also have to analyze, when there's like a large trend of movement, where does that originate and what could have pulled them in a different direction? Because people are complex, obviously, and most of them are not ideological in the ways that we are.
I know, but I do think they're in an echo chamber, and that's a big piece of it that I would have underestimated previously, but now I feel like it's undeniable that when you go into the podcast space, if you have some sort of hobby like working out or playing video games or whatever it may be, you start engaging on that in social media or on the internet, and very quickly you end up in a right-coded space without realizing it, and you just become a Republican. And that's a problem.
Yeah,
that's a problem. And the left has ceded the ground. They don't care.
To your point about the ship has sailed. Like, you know, David Brooks now being like, maybe Bernie Sanders had a point. It's like, it's too fucking late.
You fucking asshole. You killed it. You snuffed it out.
Even if you imagine now, suddenly the Democratic Party was like, shit, we should have done the Bernie Sanders, like, that was the right way to go. The people who would have been behind that when it was an organic grassroots Bernie Sanders movement, they're Republicans now. And they're not coming back. Like, that's part of why I'm so sort of like doomer right now, is because even if, I don't think they will learn the right line, but even if they did, there just isn't the support for it and the, you know, ground troops to support it anymore, because you chase those people out of the party.
Well, on that one, I agree Rogan is a lost cause, but I'm actually not as doomer on the rest of like the regular people. And so we could actually talk about that with Edinger because I think I can make that argument pretty effectively. So.
Okay, good. Well, I want you to undoomer pill me because at the moment I'm just like, you know, I think they're going to embrace soft fascism. They already have embraced soft fascism, and they'll win elections that way. Like it will be successful to a certain extent. But, you know, I think the die is kind of cast.